got a lot to talk about this afternoon, so get in here. This is Jack with Cosmic Road. I'll talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like and subscribe and let me know what you think in the comments below. Yeah, I've got way too much on my browser, guys. Way too many tabs open. So help me close some of these open tabs by going over some of these stories that I have not been able to share because there's just so many hours in the day. But yeah, there's so many great stories. Look at this awesome UFO video. This is shared by Think Tank. This is the source from this news piece here. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but yeah, there's a really cool UFO footage. If it will play, here we go. Look at that. Really intriguing footage of whatever the heck that thing is. What is that? All right, that looks pretty anomalous. I don't think that's a balloon. I don't think that's an ice particle on the window or anything like that. Although, you know, you can never completely discount something like that. But that looks like a freaking UFO, guys. Leaving the little smeary trail behind it, doing erratic movements. Yeah, so yeah, let me know what you think about that really cool UFO video. And I'll link to this and you can watch the full thing at your leisure. Let's see, another cool UFO video from Warrington, the UK, above Manchester Airport. All right, where is it? Yeah, and you can see the funky movements it's doing. Love it. Oh, look at that. That was sweet. I gotta see that again. Oh yeah, okay. That was really cool. I've got to see that super fast movement again. Wait for it. Look at that. Oh, that was incredible. I love that. I love that. Look at that. Look at that. That is badass. That is badass. Awesome. Awesome stuff. All right, let's see what else we've got. Oh, yeah. Roz Coulthart talking about the Mormon connection to what's going on right now.
One thing that does interest me is I do think the Church of Scientology knows a lot more than it's letting on. And it's interesting because Danny Sheehan has indicated something about this. I strongly recommend people go back and have a look at his interviews. I also think that it's interesting that the Mormon Church has an inordinate number of people working inside the legacy program. And yes, we know who you are. I have names, I have locations, I have people who are managerial roles in the Mormon Church who just also happen to be in very senior positions in the legacy program. And it's interesting, maybe people in the Mormon faith find it in many ways because so much of the Mormon faith is derived allegedly from an alien communication. If you read the history of the church, maybe they believe that it validates their religion for this to be revealed or explored. I don't know. But no, I'm not aware of any kind of sect or religion that is sharing this knowledge. I do think that there are some religious institutions, though, such as the Mormons and the Scientologists, that have done a lot of work into this area. And frankly, I don't think there's anything sinister in that. If I had the resources, I'd be pouring money into investigating this as well.
Yeah, no, the links between Scientology and Mormonism in the legacy programs and, you know, the non-legacy programs, like what's going on at Skinwalker Ranch, is really intriguing. What does that mean? And we've heard, and I've shared stories before about possible spying on, you know, the Church of Scientology by the CIA. And yeah, this Mormon connection is interesting. Wasn't the Mormon faith founded supposedly by some tablets taken out of one of the mounds? You know, really intriguing stuff. And of course, Brandon Fugel, current owner of Skinwalker Ranch, is a Mormon. Yeah, I'd love to know your thoughts about what all of that means. Are some of those faiths tapped into something that gives them some sort of insight or impetus into trying to understand this stuff? Yeah, and we're going to get into a little bit more of that. Let's see, in this one, where is it? Well, we'll get to it. We'll get to it in a minute. Okay. But first, we have to get to Jesse Michaels relating his own UFO experience.
I was doing holotropic breath work in Silver Lake with a friend who's I won't out him, but he's a prominent investor who's like as rational as it gets. Like he's actually really interested in like philosophy and academic science and stuff. And like the way he described his worldview is like the natural philosophers like David Hume. He's super into Noam Chomsky. Like he couldn't be more like the material world is what it is. Like he's kind
Yeah.
of like a material world, like a materialist atheist, And we had just gone surfing, and then we're back at his spot in Silver Lake, and I wanted to teach him holotropic breath work, which is I love holotropic. It's the best. And we're doing it, and he kind of like 5 minutes in, like your hands can kind of clam up. It's like a common
Yep.
thing, and like
Yep.
you get into like an interesting state. And all of a sudden he looks up. He's like, "What is that?" I go, "Oh my god, two metallic orbs, like one above him, one above me. They look like they're way too high to be, prosaic aircraft. I wouldn't be able to tell you like what, 60,000, 80,000, but like they were high up and they were like bobbing, like hovering. And this is so funny. Like initially he goes, I goes, what? I go, what the fuck do you think those things are? And he goes, I think that must be one of those like deep black, Lockheed crafts or whatever. And I'm like, interesting. And then a second later, he goes, dude, those are not like of Earth.
Yeah, I don't think Lockheed Martin craft come when you call them, but hey, I could be wrong. But there you go, Jesse Michael's talking about his own UFO experience doing holotropic breath work. I've never really done a lot of holotropic breath work. I've experimented with it very briefly. But if you've had some cool experiences with holotropic breath work, whether that's UFOs or more metaphysical, spiritual stuff, let me know. I'd be very curious to hear your experiences. Meanwhile, another interesting UFO shared by Jason Sands. Let's check it out. Now, this one is almost 2 minutes long, so I may not play the whole thing, but look at that. Oh, now, could those be flares dropping from the sky? Oh, we got flares going sideways. Maybe not. Oh, that's pretty cool. I like that. 3, 2, 1. Okay. Ooh, look at that. That's cool. Look at that. Is there some sort of mundane explanation for that? I mean, if they weren't like darting sideways, I would say, hey, maybe flares, but they are darting sideways. So, what are those things? Is there some mundane explanation for this fantastic footage? They're not satellites. Probably not raccoons. I mean, you never know. You never know. But I think that is just gangbusters footage of something. But hey, again, if you have some mundane explanation for it, let me know. There often is one, but that's pretty badass. That's pretty badass. All right, let's see what else we got. Oh, here we go. Here's what I was talking about. From Fringe, L. Ron Hubbard claimed his guardian angel was Hathor, aka the lady from the Chris Bledsoe story. This is the goddess to whom the blood ritual in Babylon working was dedicated. And then there we get into the Scientology connection, the Babylon working, Aleister Crowley, and, of course, later on, L. Ron Hubbard and Jack Parsons. Loose connection there, but interesting. Chris Bledsoe is also in direct contact with Hathor. Yeah, the lady from the Chris Bledsoe story identifies herself as Hathor at times. And so, yeah, there's a really interesting connection there. And I made a video the other day talking about high strangeness in Egypt. And some of that had to do with Sekhmet, who is an aspect of Hathor, or Hathor can assume the aspect of Sekhmet. Hathor is a really intriguing figure that, in one incarnation or another, or one aspect or another, seems to still be interacting with people today. Who knows about the Babylon working and all of that, but the fact that L. Ron Hubbard claimed his guardian angel was Hathor is really intriguing. Is that the lady? Was he interacting with the lady? Wow, that is nuts, guys. That is nuts. And you can read more about this in this piece. Maybe I'll read a little bit of it here. Jack Parsons had mentioned Hubbard's guardian angel, the Empress. Okay, not the lady, but the Empress. Nibs Hubbard says his father also called his guardian angel Hathor or Hathor. Hathor is an Egyptian goddess, the daughter and mother of the great sun god Amun Ra, the principal Egyptian deity. She was depicted as a winged and spotted cow feeding humanity, a goddess of love and beauty. But she had a second aspect, not always mentioned in text on Egyptian mythology, that of the avenging lioness, Sekhmet, a destructive force. So, yeah, really intriguing connections with Mormonism, Scientology, and Hathor, and how all of those seem to have some intersections with what's going on right now. Wild stuff. Yeah, here's an interesting piece. Now, there's more Aleister Crowley stuff. Yeah, while this is from Ruby, and Ruby is referencing this video and this article. Ruby is not just coming up with this. While the West is catching up, the Russians released the fact that they were summoning UFOs from 2013 onwards. Their findings in the early 1980s, an experiment to summon a UFO was staged at a military range in the Astrakhan region. By then, experts had realized that UFOs were frequently sighted in areas of heightened tension. For instance, during weapons tests or when there was a lot of military hardware gathered in one area. Reminds me of the Dragon UFOs, how they'll buzz aerial vehicles, and also how they'll go over military installations and airports and so on. They're drawn to activity. Really intriguing. And the Russians were finding that back in the 80s. One could say that during that experiment, we learned how to summon a UFO. To achieve that, there would be a sharp increase in the number of flights performed by combat aircraft and a lot of movement of hardware. Then UFOs appeared with a probability of nearly 100%. Yet, when they were moving hardware and so on, when there was heightened activity, the UFOs would show up. With time, all the participants in the experiment got so much used to the phenomenon that they took them for granted. Some even tried to make contact with those objects. It looked like this. A person on the ground would wave their arms twice to the right and twice to the left. The ball in the sky would react to it by swinging twice to the right and then twice to the left. We had no idea how to explain that. In the end, the military, along with scientists who took part in the experiment, came to three main conclusions. First, these may be natural phenomena that modern science is not yet able to decipher. Second, these may be U.S. or Japanese reconnaissance equipment. And third, these may be ET. So, yeah, super intriguing. The Russians have been working on this stuff lo these many years, just as we have. And sounds like they made some progress in trying to figure out some patterns. Okay, here we go. Also from Ruby, talking about Chris Bledsoe. Given Chris Bledsoe's mention of Hal Povenmire's 2025 disclosure date, I'll leave this letter sent to Linda Howe, which states that a being who survived the Roswell crash told humans that full contact would occur around the year 2025. In 1996, a person sent a letter to Linda Howe where they claimed to be the person who dispatched the artifacts of Roswell disc debris to talk show Art Bell, which then became known as Art's Parts and was later sold to TTSA, the bismuth piece. In this letter, the person claims that one of the beings that survived the Roswell crash stated that a transition would take place resulting in full contact occurring around the Terran Earth year 2025. And yeah, there's a link. Now I will link to this and you can read it at your leisure. The bismuth piece is real and it has been studied by various, entities, including TTSA and I think the Army now as well. And it's genuinely anomalous. Nobody can explain this thing. And the person that sent this to Linda Moulton Howe or Art Bell said that we were going to have open contact in 2025. Really intriguing. So the bismuth piece. There, I got it. I think the bismuth piece is real. So is that information real? Really intriguing. Let me know your thoughts. Are we going to have some sort of mass event in 2025? Meanwhile, this is a really intriguing a thread by Joe Murgia, but it's going to take some time to go through. Let me just see if I can go through it really quickly because it's really intriguing. Are we collaborating with NHI? I don't know if this is true, Joe says, but it's sure fun to contemplate. How would the masses react? Jason Sand says if there was a lab environment, the NHI demanded that no human be in the lab while they're there. Lynn Buchanan says, I have seen ETs working with humans in black op areas. 2 were insect-like. 1 was a small gray. Yeah, and I've talked about Lynn's experiences or before. There's some disturbing stuff in there. Jason Sand says, on mission, I did get that feeling that no matter where the NHI were mentioned, it was not a copacetic free-for-all exchange of technologies at all. It was very controlled by NHI. Now we're talking about the control group working alongside beings, which they have for many years. And in fact, the control group members will even assist the beings in abductions. It's really weird. Yeah, and it's complicated, and I've gone into some of that before. And then there's the MyLab stuff, which is separate. And yeah, it gets very weird. Anyway, but yeah, specifically getting back to the Jason Sands and Lynn Buchanan's information and comparing the 2 veins of information here and finding commonalities. That's what Joe Murgia is doing in this really excellent thread. If there was a lab environment, the NHI demanded that no human be in the lab while they're there, or watch what they're doing and record what they're doing. And then they would leave, and then the humans could come in. So it's a very precarious little game that they're playing. Interesting, Joe says. OG remote viewer Lynn Buchanan told a similar but different story. Sands is basing what he said on conversations he overheard as he carried out his job duties in the military. Buchanan claims he saw it with his own eyes. If true, maybe they were different groups of NHI with different rules. Fascinating. Buchanan says, I had done some black ops work for different black ops units, and we had experience of seeing ETs physically. And I'm choosing my words very carefully here, okay? I have had the opportunity of seeing ETs physically, not in remote viewing, but physically being there. In these black ops areas like that, you see something like that, you turn the other way because, believe me, in those areas like that, you don't want to know anything you don't want to know because, you might not get out. Yeah. Linda Howe says, Lynn, you're implying that we have black ops humans working with ETs on this planet. Buchanan says, no, I'm not saying that I've seen ETs working with humans in black ops areas. Yeah, I'm saying that I have seen ETs working with humans in black ops areas, in human black ops areas. Linda Moulton Howe says, right, but doesn't that imply that they might? Oh, I don't mean that they might either be working together or might not be working together. Lynn Buchanan says, I would say they're working together if they're right there working together. The ones that I saw at Mount Zeal is one of 4 locations famed remote viewer Pat Price said, and his remote viewing was an ET base, I believe. Lynn is using saw as in he remote viewed it and didn't see it physically with his own eyes. That's an interjection from Joe. Continuing with what Buchanan said, I saw many people there that looked exactly like humans, and I just called them humans. So I would suppose I would not be surprised to find out there are humans working with ETs and there are ETs working with the humans. A question from John Burroughs. How do they communicate? Is it verbally or telepathically? Buchanan said, I don't know. The abduction experience I had, I was so focused on this guy's hands, the Gray's hands, that I know that we talked at great length. In fact, when we got to the place where the ship was going, he pulled me out of line with all the other abductees, and he said, you don't want to go where they're going. And we sat on a hillside and we talked at great length. Yeah, and I've gone over that experience more and more detail because he goes into more detail leading up to that experience and after it and some of the events around it. Really interesting, but that's not what I wanted to get into here. But just the idea that beings are indeed working with the control group. Jason Sands and Lynn Buchanan both commented on that. And there's a little bit more. Let's see. Joe Murgia actually was able to ask him some questions. It says, just to clarify, you saw ETs working with humans in black op areas before you joined the remote viewing unit and after you retired from the Army. Lynn says, yes. How many times? Only 3. I'd also like to add that most of the times when some outsider, which I always was to these units, comes in, the personnel there don't like to be seen, but they are trapped at their workstation. So they either turn away from the outsider or do something to make themselves unidentifiable at a quick glance. So when I saw what I thought to be an alien and quickly turned away myself, there is always the possibility that it was just some human who had put on some kind of gag mask to hide his or her identity. I don't believe that to be the case in those 3 instances, but I have to still be honest and hold that out as a possibility. So always possible. Joe says, and what were these ETs doing? That's classified. Okay, I will link to this and you can read the full article at your leisure, but there you go. Some more pieces of evidence that indeed NHI are and have been working with the control group, something that I and many others have talked about many times, of course, but very important to know the people that are the gatekeepers on this information are working with the phenomenon. And who's calling the shots? Is it the phenomenon that says we can't reveal this to the public? Or is it the gatekeepers that don't want to relinquish control of this information? Let me know what you think about it all in the comments below as we admire the best cooking show ever made. That's what a cooking show needs, is a cow. Makes sense. Makes sense, guys. Let me know what you think about this awesome cooking show and everything else covered today in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Hit the bell to be notified of future videos. You don't want to miss anything. Join me on social media. There's Facebook and Twitter links below. Love to see you guys there. If you want to share on social media, that would be super awesome. Yeah, all those links are below. Become a channel member, buy a t-shirt, and there are plenty of other videos on the channel. Not all of them feature a cow on a cooking show, though. Yeah, see you next time, guys. This is Jack with Cosmic Road in a cow, eating some pancakes, signing out.